This is the 21st season of Bass Talk Live. BTL is presented by Bass Cat Boats, Strike King Lures, AFTCO, Pro Guide Batteries, Spro, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, Beatdown Outdoors, and Sunline.
BTL coming at you.
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we're going to talk about bass fishing. We got a good show today as we wrap up the 2025 season, which is hard to believe. I did mention in the last Best on Tour this week with Dave Rush, we kind of previewed the final Bassmaster Classic spot that was up for grabs on Lake Hartwell in the Bassmaster Team Championship. One of those odd scenarios where you build a bond with your teammate, you work your ass off to qualify for the national championship, and then you finish in the top five, and then they say now you're mortal enemies, go beat each other, where one of you can crush each other's dreams while he can sit in the stands and watch as you fish in the Bassmasters Classic after they make teammates go head to head. That happened, and a familiar name ended up winning the team championship in a fish off. Fisher Anaya makes the Bassmaster Elite Series, and then literally on the last day of the last possible way to qualify, makes the Bassmaster Classic to kick off his Elite Series career with a spot in the Bassmaster Classic. He had a 2-day total of 39 pounds, 15 ounces, the TNT Fireworks Team Championship Classic fish off to make the Bassmaster Class. So he had a 20-pound bag on Hartwell, which is really impressive, considering, especially if you talk to a lot of those guys, and I know they're catching some big bags at Lanier right now, but if you talk to a lot of those guys that are on the Blueback lakes, there was kind of like I would basically call it like an open season period on them, where the big spots, Hartwell, Murray, that type, Clark's Hill, were like, oh, we're out here chasing herring, and anything that's moving through the water column is edible and delicious. And it took them a couple years to realize, oh, they can see us out here. And now it's really hard to catch them, from the guys that I've talked with, and from my experience having been out there. So that's a big bag for Fisher. A guy who's probably he's fished Blueback lakes for a long time. He might be the most senior angler on the 2026 Bassmaster Elite Series, and I think he would gladly take that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday heading into 2026. That's today's guest, Mr. Mark Menendez. Is that correct, Mark? Are you the most senior angler on the 2026 Bassmaster Elite Series?
Well, yes, I am, Matt. I lost my roommate, Bernie Schultz, who had me by almost 10 years, and that elevates me to the top or the bottom, however you want to look at it.
What's wild, though, is Bernie, since I've been in this game since 2007, Bernie has not aged. Bernie does not age. It's crazy, and he's also a Florida dude who's like always out in the sun, saltwater, freshwater, everything. And the guy has looked about 50 years old from the time I knew him until right now.
Well, Bernie has the best hair on tour, always has, at Blastoff. And when he comes in, his hair's better than Roland's has ever been. And he's just, I love Bernie. Bernie and I fish an awful lot. So Bernie and I's friendship goes back to a lot of tournaments when we weren't rooming together that we found the same fish and made it work for both of us. They were never the tournament winners, but they were always check getters. So Bernie and I have fished the same fish together and just made it work, and just good friends for a very long time.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because I know fishing around Oklahoma and then in the Opens the last 5 or 6 years, when you start fishing around the same group, or when you're fishing in the same fields, right? I've noticed that too, where I'm like, what? Wait, that guy again? And then you end up becoming friends with them because you'll be some obscure spot and you'll be like, crap, there's a boat back here. And you'll be like, it's the same guy. It's really interesting how certain guys just have a tendency to kind of break down water the same.
Yeah. Peter Thaveros. We were always in the same area. Very early in my career, it was remarkable how many times Rick Clunn and I were in the same area together. Of course, Rick is one of my heroes as a young person. He's one of my great friends now. But I took his theories and developed them for my own style. And doggone, we ended up in the very same areas many, many times. But you do, and you have to be personal. You have to be friendly, and you have to work this out. And for the most part, it always works out, and you make great friends over it.
I don't know if you were listening to the first segment that I had, my kind of unofficial opinion on the rapidly evolving blueback herring fisheries and how those fish kind of was open season for a couple years there, specifically with the forward facing sonar. But now those are some of the trickiest fish to catch quality bags on. Would you agree with that assessment, having ventured out there over the last couple years with Murray and such?
Absolutely. And what even makes it more difficult is you start the winter drawdown. So a lot of the bank cover is gone, and we don't have a lot of grasses in the southeast right now. So they're just kind of out there becoming a striper that has green blotches on them. You know what I mean? And they're out there cruising around and eating. And that's an open water fish has always been a tough fish to catch. Now, one thing I will say, Matt, is regardless of what it is, whether it's a technique, whether it's forward facing, side scan, whatever the heck it's been, the fish tend to adjust to it after being pressured for a while. So I think we're going to see a lot of different techniques evolve, different things evolve to catch these fish as they become pressured. And I've seen on certain lakes with lots of pressure, you shine the radar over there on them and see you bye. They gone.
Go back to like way before. I'm talking like 10, 15 years before. Like, how would you target those Hartwell, Murray, Clark's Hill? Like, was there anybody who tried to, I'm not talking about, the fish that were on the cane that you dumped there that you knew where it was, but like, was there anybody that you can remember? I mean, you've been doing this for 30 years that would target open water pelagic fish, like the ones that are being scoped right now, but without it?
Well, there was one angler that did it, that kind of started the progression. This happened at Lake Oneida on one of our trips out there. And the dude's sitting out there in the middle of the damn lake over a gazillion feet of water. And he's out there on 2D looking for balls of bait and just fishing around those bait. And that was Jeff Crete.
I remember that. He was throwing a tube on him.
He was throwing a tube on him, but Jeff was really good at striper fishing in Oklahoma. So
Texoma.
On Texoma. And so he took that when he saw big rafts of birds out there, minnow-eating birds out there in the middle of the lake. And he didn't win the tournament, but he sure made it competitive. He was a top 3 or 4, as I recall. And I'm kind of like, woo, if anybody ever figures that out there, we're in trouble. The guys that are using, seasonal patterns and up on the bank and flipping docks and whatever you have. And that opened up a whole new world to me.
Oh my gosh. You're absolutely right. So this isn't it, but here I just found this random video. Hold on. We'll show it. I'll show it to you right here. I have no idea what this is. This was put on YouTube 14 years ago. Mark, I mean, he's running the hydro wave wrap there. And the title of this thing is Jeff Crete on schooling smallmouth bass. Just listen to this. This is very interesting.
Let me tell you what's going on right now, like on my home lake, Lake Murray. The fish are all suspended pretty much in the middle of the lake. The bait is all in the middle of the lake over deep water. And really, I mean, you can't, it's not like you can go through and catch them vertically. So what I'm doing, I'm driving around. When I see a lot of bait, what I'm doing is I'm throwing my trolling motor down, and I'm actually cranking that volume up.
Anyway, it's a thing on hydrowave, but that's exactly what you just talked about.
Yeah, well, if he hadn't had that yellow boat back then, nobody would have ever seen him out there in the middle of the damn lake. And that kind of keyed it off was the fact that he had a yellow wrap at the time. And you drive by there and you think, damn, maybe I need to go out there and check on him, see if he's broke down or something. But no, he had figured that out. And there's a few little series of ridges out there way off the bank, little contour changes. And that's where all the bait was in that lake the time that we went. And he made it work. It was impressive.
If I remember off the top of my head, that was the event that Chad Griffin ended up winning. He found a topwater school of smallmouth, had nothing to throw topwater with, had one of the Zell Roland Excalibur Zell pops that had just come out, and ended up catching them on a 20-pound test fluorocarbon and a popper.
Well, and as I recall, that bait had been in the bottom of his boat for a while.
Yeah.
And it had rusty old hooks on it too. So when you're destined to win, you're destined to win. And but I think that is the tournament.
Yeah, because Harold and I were tasked with trying to get that bait to show off for the wide open segment. And when we went to the tackle store, it was closed. And we had to basically go to the back door and catch the owner of it leaving, beg him to let us go in to get one of the baits so we could show it off on wide open that night. But yeah, no, that's a great find there. I need to get Creed. I know that this is his busy season he's at that island. All he does is tan and take bachelorette parties out to an island in South Florida on a pontoon boat for like 8 hours at a time. It's a hell of a life, Mark.
Nothing wrong with pontooning. My wife and I bought a pontoon boat this last summer, and we've spent a lot of hours on it. What a great way to relax. I take my wife, not bachelorette, so it's still a good way to relax.
Yeah. Speaking of things that probably wasn't relaxing, that was your path back to the 2026 Bassmaster Elite Series. Now, I follow this. This is obviously what I do for a living, but I don't really understand, like, the way I understood it. You were fishing the EQs because you were trying to get back on the Bassmaster Elite Series, thinking you were out. And then a post came a couple days ago. Hey, back on the Elite Series for 2026. As much as you want to go in depth on that, Mark, walk us through that final cast of the 2025 season up until the see you next year post.
Well, it all started at the end of our Elite Series this year. And the way we requalify, Matt, is the top 70 in points are automatic requalifiers.
Mm-hmm.
So anyone below the top 70, we go to what's called our career averages. And I have a relatively decent, I've always had a relatively decent career average of Angler of the Year standings, where I'm right there in the top 50 almost every year. Well, these little whippersnappers, these young kids that have come in here are such talented young anglers, they've dropped that average quite a bit. So once you get from 71 down to about 90 on the current Angler of the Year list, then you start doing your career average. And when that goes here, and here, I found myself to be the first man out. Completely distraught, thinking, wow, this could be the end of my career.
And you found that out when, or you knew you were in that position before the last couple, or was this after the season was over, or like when did this? Okay, so it was after. So you didn't know you were fishing for your life in the last couple.
Correct. I knew I better step it up.
Yeah.
And had the opportunities at 10 Killer and at La Crosse to make the top 70. That's how thin, razor thin it is, Matt. I lost 2 fish at 10 Killer. I lost 2 fish in the last 5 minutes at La Crosse, and that was the difference between me not being in the top 70. Mm-hmm. You cannot afford to miss or lose any fish anymore. You just cannot afford to do it. So once we get into that time period where I know that I'm the first out, I was like little Abner around here. Melissa wanted to shake me and just wake up, dude.
Because you weren't ready to hang it up. Like, you're still enjoying it. You still like the travel. Like, you're still a professional bass fisherman competing at the highest level with years ahead.
Well, it's my identity. It's what I've done for 35 years. I don't know anything else. So I'm thinking I'm getting ready to lose everything that I've done for the last 35 years and prior to that. So I felt like I should go fish the EQs because the 35 years was well worth the effort. A bad tournament at St. Clair pretty much took me out of that. A decent tournament at Wheeler, and and a big opportunity to have a good tournament at Okeechobee, which I hope I never have to go to Okeechobee again, just because I never can get them in the boat there. But it left me waiting for any attrition that would happen where someone would not take their bid. Now let's back up, Matt. And in October, I received a text from my good friend and fellow elite pro Ray Hanselman saying that he was probably going to make a change in venues because his two sons are involved in high school sports. And he said, I'm not going to miss watching my kids in their sporting events.
Admirable.
And I respect that 100%. And Ray has always been very truthful and very honest with me. I fished around him a lot as well. And we talked about that at lacrosse the last 2 days in the mornings before blast off. Had no idea that was going to impact my life, but I'm like, Ray, that's a great thing. Be there for your family because they're only young once. So our drop dead date was a specific date, and Bass moved those dates back a little bit. Then they moved them one more time, and I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, guys. Let's get this over with. Am I in or am I out?
Yeah.
But what I did do, and Ray suggested that when on that text in October, go ahead and start your planning, which was the best advice he could have given me. So I've ordered my Gamakatsu hooks. I have all my agreements in place. Some new stuff coming in the future that we'll get to at another time. But I'm driving home from the lake on Friday afternoon. I've been up there at the lake house, taking care of the pontoon boat, blowing leaves around, just up there working, just trying to keep my mind moving. And I'm on the phone with one of my best friends from Florida. And Lisa Talmadge calls, the tournament director. And I'm like, Greg, I got to go. And I'm like, hey, Lisa, how are you? It was like I put my FM radio voice on. And she goes, well, I'm good. What are you up to? I said, well, I'm freezing up here. And we had a little chit chat about nothing. And I'm like, come on, Lisa, give me some news.
Am I in or am I out?
She says, well, I'm here to extend you an invitation to come back to the elites. And I'm like, yes, I'm so grateful. Thank you. So that was the 3-month period of a lot of travel, a lot of expense, a lot of worry. And my wife is really glad to have me back again. Because my head's in a different space immediately. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. And as you get older, Matt, little things like this matter. I don't want to fish as long as, say, our friend Rick Clunn is fishing. I don't want to do that.
He just announced he's fishing the MPFL.
I mean, he is the bionic man. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate that determination and that drive and that desire and that mental capability. But my body's starting to go. I unfortunately have trigger finger in both of my middle fingers. I would show you, but that's not a nice thing to do.
I get that occasionally.
I've had back issues and, going through life and losing a partner changed me about 11 or 12 years ago in that I want to do something in the here and now a little different, a little more with Melissa. And when I lost Donna, I was very lost for a while, and fishing was my salvation. And now that I've got a second chance at life, fishing is still important. It's how I make my living. But I don't think you'll see me riding off into the sunset in a new bass boat in my 80s. I don't think that will happen.
So how does this work now? I know, so the career average is like you get to drop one every 3 years that you've been on it, or every 5 years you get to drop your worst year.
Right.
So you were right on the cut. So going into next year, what does that mean? Are you on a, hey, you got to catch them in these next 8, or do you have a little bit of wiggle room with the drop? I'm just curious on it is an exact science, but to everybody who's not on the Elite Series, like me included, like it's not an exact science. Like we're like, wait, who's out? Who's still in?
Right. It is kind of confusing, but like I said earlier on, that the career average has dropped so drastically. We've got some very good household names that are probably in that spotlight if it continues to drop at the rate in which it's been going. So my best hope next year is put
Finish in
together
the
a
top
good
70.
year and then just finish in the top 70, and I'm good. So that's one of the things I'm going to focus on really hard. We have new rules now as far as information. We are back to a 20-day off limits where there is no transfer of information. So I can go back and talk to some friends and talk to things that have changed on some of these lakes that I haven't been to in a long time. I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm not a proponent of information. I never have been. But if it's what we can do, yes, I'm going to take advantage of that rule. I'd be stupid not to. I'm going to go and practice a couple of lakes. I have not been going and practicing as often, maybe just once or twice a year. So I'm going to do everything I possibly can. I've started a physical fitness regime to get back in better shape. I can fish a 2-week long tournament schedule pretty easy at this age, but I need to get a little sharper. I'm going to spend some more time on some small bodies of water like Lake X and go get some repetition, go get some dam bites and get that edge back. So got a lot of work to do, and I'm going to gladly jump in there and do the work.
You brought up a couple things. I had Russ Lane on, and I pretty bluntly asked him that the last couple years, do you think there's been an epidemic of veteran complacency? And he said yes, which I can understand. I mean, you work your ass off to get to the top level. You've got there, you've got it comfortable, and then, you know, a lot of things changes. You talked about getting in some more reps and doing all that. Do you think more so with the high school and the college, and you're talking about the younger anglers, there is no more, I'm here, I'm arrived, this is my career for it, that as more young, new blood comes into the sport, there's more of, you have to fight to stay there, more of like a professional sport, like an NFL thing or not, to where, you know, if you're overshooting your receivers or you're running the wrong routes, you're no longer on the team the following year?
Well, you're going to have to, and this is a performance-based sport anyway. It is at the event level, it's performance-based. At the end of the year level, and now people that you work for want to see you do that. Social media has helped. My television show has helped get me more exposure. I've had more exposure this year on a moderate tournament year of results than I ever have in my life. The first 3 quarters of the year, I killed the exposure rate. And some of my sponsors recognize that. Others were like, well, we really want to see you catching a few more fish. You know, I had a conversation with Clun about this very thing. And I came up to him one morning and I said, look, you've got 50 years of experience. I've got 35 years of experience. That's 85 years of Bassmaster tournament experience. We should be kicking these young diaper wearing kids' butts. And he says, yeah, by definition, we should, because we have plan A, plan B, C, D, and E, because of the repetitions that we have and the experience we have between the years. He says, but what that does, Matt, it doesn't really create complacency. It gives us options in which we've been successful before. So a 20-year-old angler doesn't have those reps. He might have an idea that gets him close, but he's a hell of a lot more willing to do something radically different in a bait presentation or a location change or whatever it may be, where I still haven't gotten to plan C, D, E, F, and G. And those may take me completely out of the ball game. And that young guy that does something, you know, crazy with a topwater caffeine shad rigged sideways with the weight in the tail, and it's the perfect, you know, application. So yes, the age thing does help on part of it. It really calms you down. The old gray hairs, well, mine have turned white. They're not gray anymore. They're white. It makes me not blow out because I've had the experience. I know to keep the mind moving, keep the train moving, keep trying to figure that out. But on the other side of it, it sure makes me reluctant sometimes to change and do something crazy, which is how I won some tournaments in the past.
Now we're gonna take our first break. When we come back, I want to get your opinion on like you're an old school angler, from sponsorships to tournament. Like you like I said, 35 years there. I had an off the record conversation with someone the other day, and I'd love to get your take on it. And it has to do with the longevity of these newer anglers who, for the first time since I have been covering it, there are more professional anglers at the top level who are making a living on tournament earnings than there ever have been. I don't want you to answer that now. I want you to think about that, and I want to get your take on that statement, because to me, for the last 18 years, all you've heard is you can't make a living on tournament earnings unless you were an Aaron Martins or you're a Steve Kennedy. Those are two unicorn guys who made it. You know, obviously you had a KVD who could do it, but he had a whole empire on that. But when it comes to tournament earnings, if you're relying on that, you're going to be out of this game. And I'm looking at it now and I'm saying there are more guys who don't have deals, who are throwing whatever they want, changing boats, doing all that, and they're making $300,000 a year and they're 23 years old. I want to get your thoughts on that. It's BTL on a Monday. I still get to say it with Elite Series veteran Mark. Listen, I got to say it with Austin. Like, one of the cool things, I had Tristan McCormick on. I was able to introduce him as Elite Series rookie Tristan McCormick. Had Austin Crayford on, referred to him as an Elite Series pro in there, and he paused. He goes, wow, that's the first time anyone's ever said that to me on it. So I would imagine that you're used to it, but it still feels good to hear Elite Series pro. Mark Menendez will be back right after this.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
Before there were hashtags, there were handshakes and shared stories. They gave us confidence to make our first cast and chase our dreams. They taught us to fish, and in the process, taught us about life. They taught us that success isn't just about reaching the top. It's about lifting others up. The future isn't just about selling tackle. It's about 3 simple words. Let's go fishing. Here's to the original influencers.
When I'm in a tournament, conditions are constantly changing and every second matters. With the Deep Dive app, I can instantly pull up all the current lake conditions all in one spot. So no more looking at weird government websites. In just one quick glance, I have water clarity, water level, wave forecast. It's all right there in the Deep Dive app. Download the Deep Dive app and get all the tools you need to put together an awesome tournament.
All right, welcome back. BTL on a Monday, chatting with Elite Series veteran Mark Menendez. And before the break, I posed, I guess, a statement that I would like your opinion on. There's now more so than ever in 2025 and moving forward in 2026, more professional anglers who are making their living on tournament earnings than any time in the past 40 years. True or false statement, and what are your thoughts on that, Mark?
Oh, absolutely true, Matt. I really think so. Let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
I started in 91, fall of 91, spring of 92 on the Bassmaster Invitationals. So at that point, you had 40 very accomplished anglers. You had 100 guys like me that were dumb and hungry. And then you had a lot of guys on the invitationals that had the ability to be there financially, and they loved to fish. Now we have high school fishing, college fishing, every AAA level available. So experience can be gathered in that I got in 10 years. You can gather that experience now in 3. So the curve has been shortened and the learning curve has been quickened for these young people to become very capable anglers. In my day, all the way through the middle 2000s, Matt, there were probably 5 or 6 guys that I can come up with. Kevin, Denny, Larry, Rick of the old guard, and you throw in Jay Ellis, Clark Winlet, and maybe a couple of other anglers that were, Iconelli being another one, of guys that were so talented in their fishing that they could make a solid living just from winnings.
You named all Hall of Famers.
Well, there you go. And then you get to a group of the other echelon of anglers, and I'll throw myself in there, that would have great tournaments at times, have solid tournaments a lot of times, but had to rely on something else that created a pro angler, and that was promotionally. Either working boat shows or Bassmaster universities or whatever it was. We didn't have social media, so we had to work in the media part of it, and Bassmaster Magazine was the greatest way. So you had to learn how to navigate in the media. You had to have good finishes. You had to make classics. You had to be lucky enough to catch the biggest bass ever. Whatever you accolade you got, you had to pile those on where you could. So now let's enter into social media. Now we have anglers that are not even tournament anglers that are brandishing high numbers on social media, and they're getting salaries that rival an Elite Series angler. Not to belittle them, they're good at media, but are they a capable angler that is earning credibility through competition? And I hate to go there. So yes, these young anglers have got so much experience under their wings now, coming through the high school, college, and the open ranks, and now here they are, they're elites. They've already got 100 national tournaments under their belt. Well, it took me 12 or 14 years because I was only fishing 4 to 6 tournaments a year to get that experience. They're getting it quick. So that experience is what's helping them. The advent of social media, they've piled onto that. They've gotten a lot of exposure for their companies that they work for. So that helps. And we have more tournaments now, Matt, than we had in the past. So everything, including time on the water with forward facing, has sped our sport up. Dinosaurs like me are going to be a thing of the past in longevity of careers. 25, 30, 35, 40, Mark Menendez, Bernie Schultz, Rick Clunn. Those things I think are going to be fewer and far between to have anglers that have longer careers. And I think your turnover is going to be faster just because the level of competition is going up.
This was the second half of the conversation that I had. It was that as a result of the young anglers catching them, and this isn't a knock on anybody, I think it's just fact. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I don't know. I'm just posing the question. If the trend continues, there's obviously going to be, you're listening to 23-year-olds now talk about how good the high school anglers behind them are coming up that are better than them. But you also have this group, and I've been in the media. I also fish the opens. I've been around. I work with different companies and things, but they haven't had to develop the marketing and the industry relationship side of their game like you did, like that your whole group of anglers did. Like I think that whole group of the 50-year-olds now, the Skeets and the Edwins and the Geralds and Timmy Hortons and you, and throw Kevin in there, and that was the first like mega stars that were like, we catch them and we sell stuff and we develop baits and we create personalities. And, I think ESPN had a big hand in kind of pushing that with some of them to say, hey, Iconelli's in there too. Hey, create that superhero look. And you didn't have the social media, so you could see them on the TV and on that magazine. But are we creating now? I digress. Will there be an issue with these anglers that are now making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year based on their earnings across the MLF and the Bass and all these independent platforms too, to where when they have a couple down years, like now it's all gravy train, but you know how fast money moves in this sport, Mark. Will there be a a value deficiency with these anglers when they hit that career lull where they don't go $100,000 to $200,000 every single year. If they have a couple years where they don't catch them, you've been able to do that. You've been exceptionally consistent over the course of your career, but it's your personality, relationship with sponsors, what you add to them, bait development, all of that allows you to comfortably, quote unquote, have average years and then maximize the really good years. Is there going to be a group of anglers right now that struggle with that because they haven't built that side?
I think there will be. You have to be diversified.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is so hard to sustain at the top of the sport, in the top of the levels of consistency of angling. You have to be diversified. And I was lucky enough to figure that out at a very early age, that if I had a great year of fishing, I was going to get a lot of exposure through the magazine and through television. But if I didn't have a good year of fishing, I would get no exposure if I didn't have a good year of getting exposure and promotional value. So if I established that promotional value, it gave me the diversification, and it took a lot of the pressure off of the fishing. You know, you go out and you sell a dozen Yamaha outboards, that's a pretty darn solid year, because you're adding money back into your marketing budget and you're making yourself subsist because you're paying for yourself. Mm-hmm. You have the credibility because you're selling that product. And that's very important. Just to have that consistency there on the promotional side of things. And then when you had your promotional value there and you're doing all the things you need, getting this logo, this Seaguar logo, this Yamaha logo out there, and then you have a good year of fishing, at that point, you've had a great year. So those things all average. But for me, it was always on the promotional side of things to take the pressure off the fishing, have a good year of fishing. And that's what made my business click. I set my business up such that when I did get a check in a tournament, that was always a bonus. And I've averaged about 50% of the events that I fish in, I've gotten a check over 35 years. So those bonuses can add up to consecutive or consistently high incomes when you have those good years. Solid years in an exposure work well too. It's about the numbers now. The way the numbers have changed or with social media and digitally. That's where the numbers have changed. And as print media slows with the outcome of digital, you're going to change the way you do things. And I'm learning that. Like I said earlier, my numbers in the first 3 quarters of this year were the best I've ever had. Now, what's interesting, Matt, is finding a pro staff director or a marketing director that understands what the in-kind ad rate of 3 quarters of the year is at $29 million. How much actual value? And that $29 million would have been what it would have cost to buy all of those venues where I got all my exposure. And the exposure I got in the first 3 quarters was a value of $29 million. Is that a valuable player? You bet you that helps create more value with you and consistency to ride out in between catching them and having a down year like I've had this year. So it's a neat game to play. It's nothing really different than what I've done for 35 years, but the cogs in the wheel are totally different now. And trying to figure those algorithms out are interesting at best.
Dude, I've been the exact same way over here at BTO. It's like, do you go with catch your titles to get more views, but then your minutes go down, or is it a thumbnail, or is it, do you start doing short? Like and I'm at the time where, you know, with Mark, longest running daily podcast in history. If you want to just go to if it's not broke, don't fix it. But you also don't want to wake up one day and then realize that you're behind. It's very interesting. Okay, here's what I want to do. I'm going to share a screen, and this is from a 2000. It doesn't matter who it is. It's Dino, but it's a perfect example here. So in 2000, you take yourself back 25 years. This is a Bassmaster cover right here. At the time, this is a grip and grin in a jersey with a clean back. In 2000, this is the holy grail, the pinnacle of bass fishing marketing, bar none, correct?
Absolutely. That is an instant 500,000 exposures instantly when that hits the mailbox to the bass member, over 500,000 at that time. And then you take that and you multiply it with a multiplier of something like 2.7 or 3.1 that Bassmaster magazine will change hands. So there's 1.5 million exposures in that magazine cover instantly. That is the longest Babe Ruth home run, Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire hit that you could make in the time, and the quickest way to get monster exposure.
Okay, so what does a cover like this do for career security?
Oh,
like, would this let's just put this as Angler X, not Dean Rojas, who had just set the record a couple years before, whatever. Let's just Angler X. Middle of the road guy wins a tournament. This comes out. Back in the day, would this buy you multiple years of sponsorships with a company and solidify your financial status?
I don't know that it solidified my bank account, but what it did was it gave me credibility as an angler.
Because you've been on the cover before.
I have been on.
I was trying to find it. What month? I'd pull you up here instead of Rojas.
2005.
He gets way more exposure.
My first one. It was Bassmaster's 100th edition, I think, is what it was. Something like that. It buys you credibility, Matt, and it shows, wow, he had a great event. He won that tournament. He caught that bass, whatever it was. But it showed the angling public that you were a credible angler and you had skills. And then if you were able to start a marketing campaign and work with other writers, and your frequency in the magazine, which was the pinnacle of exposure, if your frequency in the magazine started coming, then you got additional exposure. Then you had a top 10 in a tournament, top 50, or you made a classic or whatever it was. That's how you built things then. And now, you were mentioning clickbait earlier. Should we do more clickbait? I've taken the stance of just being honest. I've never bought a like or someone to follow me from Kuala Lumpur or Malaysia or anything like that. So my numbers that I've generated are completely organic.
There's several fans who's made fan bases in like Mozambique.
Yes, yes. And I hope they catch a lot of bass over there in Mozambique. But I've done it generically and truly. So my fan base and my numbers are completely organic. I think that's important too. Instead of having these giant numbers, that's a later one.
Yeah, that was the most recent there.
That's the most recent one.
So like, did you have stuff in your contract at the time back then, like the crankbait in its mouth, if the boat's there, if the Skeeter Yamaha logo is showing, to where that would be like, hey, you are on the cover of X magazine with this sponsor showing, you cash in on this incentive?
You betcha. I have written so many incentive addendums to my contracts. It's not even funny, because I know how to work, and my relationships were so good in the industry that I knew that I would get photographs. I knew that I would get logos and images placed in hard print back then. And that really helped solidify my career. And that was part of my job. I felt like I was more of in promotions than I was an actual angler. And the promotions were the basis and the road for me to get to go to all of these Great Lakes, fish these tournaments, have a lot of fun, and still get additional income from tournament winnings. So that diversified my job and my business a long way, and that's helped me be here for so long. So I remember one of the last ones I wrote was for Lynn Reeves at Lou's. He was a startup company. There were two names and two logos in my whole fishing career that meant a lot to me, and I felt like were staple names. One was Lou's back in the 70s, and the other one, which was the most prominent logo of any logos out there, was Hydrosports. That lightning bolt Z on the side of a boat, you could see it across the lake and instantly knew. So with Lynn taking the Lou's name and licensing it, I said, we've got to get that logo out there more. He was a fledgling company. Marketing budgets weren't that high, so he paid me a small stipend, and we built an incentive program with a cap on it. And man, it tripled my contract, but yet it got that logo in places that it couldn't have gotten any other way, and it was a meteoric rise.
I was going to talk about it right there, but there it is, right there. Hydro Sports
Exactly
on the cap of what the time was the biggest bass ever weighed in Bassmaster history.
But you know what the coolest thing about that is? I challenge all the BTL listeners and watchers to go back to that episode on YouTube. It was Megabucks in 1997 at Richland Chambers. I challenge you to go back and watch that weigh-in footage, because Ray Scott guesses the weight of the fish before I ever put it on the scales. That's an
like
I
to the
didn't realize that till I saw the footage after it came out. I said, "Oh my gosh!" Ray guessed the weight of a 13-pound, 9-ounce bass. That's how good he was, and how much fun he was, and how I miss Ray so much. But yeah, that was cool.
Here it is here. So this is obviously from one Lynn Dollars YouTube channel.
Yes.
And it's been negligent on my part, but I have a lead, and I believe 2 people involved. I want to speak for him. There's a chance that he would be open to coming on BTL and talking about this. I think he lives in my neck of the woods, is what I'm saying.
That would be amazing. He has preserved Bassmaster history better than anybody. And Matt, I won't lie to you. I watch those old videos.
Oh yeah, I do too.
Weekly, just to go down memory lane, just to see something like this, to watch when buddies won tournaments, or when I was in the same area. It's just, I love going back and watching that. And it excites me. Because the thing that tricked us all into fishing back in the day was being able to make that presentation, to flip that jig next to a log. And it was the anticipation of pitching that jig in there, and the visualization, the jig falling down by the tree, triggering that bass, getting in the, oh, I didn't catch him on that cast. Well, let's make another one. And I had the same anticipation. And that's what made us all love the fishing. So the anticipation with forward facing is gone now. And that's what I don't like about forward facing.
Yeah.
It takes that anticipation away. I use it. I'm adequate with it. I'm not an expert at it. I use it, but the anticipation of catching those giant fish is what made us all love the sport we're talking about now.
So I just know, I mean, obviously you catch way more giant fish now with scope than ever did before. But I also know, like, when I catch a big one, and I'm even just taking a picture of it for the gram and releasing it right there, like, I feel immense pressure to make sure that that fish is healthy, that it doesn't go in the box, that I hold it properly, that I release it. I couldn't imagine you're at the Texas, Fisheries there. You've got Ray Scott. You've got the big catch and release thing. This is in a Megabucks tournament. Did you feel pressure after you caught that fish of like, I got to make sure like this thing is swimming when I weigh it in? I mean, it looks like they were looking at it before, like Ray was down there looking at it before you even, like, there are no cell phones or anything. Like, did you come in and flag someone down and be like, something amazing happened? Like, how did that all
know how that all transpired? And yeah, the responsibility of keeping the fish alive was first and foremost on my mind. And I never left the area once I caught the fish, so I didn't travel. It was kind of a rough day that day, and she fit diagonally in the live well of that old boat, and she couldn't even move, so I had to be careful. I pulled up on the bank to weigh in, and Ron Sheffield was next to me. And he goes, "Well, how'd you do, Mark?" I said, "Ron, I've only got 4, but I've got an absolute giant, So Ron's sitting on the bow of his boat, and he goes, "Well, hey, Mark, pull that old big old fish out of there. I want to see that big old fish." And I said, "Okay, Ron." I pull it out of there. I hold it up, and he goes, "Oh my God, that's BASS history." And I'm like, "I don't know how big it is, but I just know it's big." So I had a 14 incher, a 5 and a 6 pounder, and a 14 pounder. And by the time I got to the weigh-in, got my bag, got her in the bag, and by the time I got to the tanks, Ray already knew. Somebody took it straight to Ray. He already knew. Dewey already knew, and he came down there to take a look at it. And so that's how that went. But the good thing was, I was lucky enough to make that historic catch, but I have a fisheries degree biology in my back pocket from Murray State University. Yep. So that at that time, when we started talking with the Texas Parks and Wildlife and the fisheries department, they knew they had someone that could help propel this momentous occasion with credibility that they didn't even know until the end. So that created a whole new stream of things, and that fish ended up going to the Tennessee Aquarium in Chattanooga, where she lived 7 more years. That fish, Matt, was only 7 years old when I caught her. So she almost had a 2-year growth rate, 2 pound per year growth rate. And she lived to be over 14 years old in the aquarium. The thing it did was over 2 million school kids a year got to come through the Chattanooga Aquarium there in Tennessee, the Tennessee Aquarium, and get to see a part of history and maybe excite them about maybe they could go catch one like it. So she had a lot of eyeballs on her, and it was a great thing for everybody and a great thing for bass fishing.
I love, and I mean, I obviously didn't know him personally. I got to meet him a couple times in the late 90s, early 2000s. But Ray, Ray's happy for you. But that look at the hand on the hip there, the hand on your back. That's you just made me a lot of money, son. That's what that look is there. That man is happy for you, but he is more happy for his organization and what that bass, the publicity that fish will bring. Like, look at that. You couldn't wipe the smile off of his face when he's standing there.
Well, I mean, it was lightning strike. And, here's another sidebar to this whole thing that is really kind of crazy. We went to the California Delta in let's see, that would have been, my record was 97. Mark Tyler captured the record in 99. So this was 2001. And Mark Tyler broke my record with a 14.9 in an open. So my fish is still the biggest bass ever caught at the Elite Series level.
Tour level.
So I'm at the Delta, and I'm about a mile from where Mark caught his giant fish. And it was a flat, calm day, high bluebird, and all of a sudden a little cloud and a big puff of wind comes over the mountain there to the west at the Delta, and it put a beautiful little ripple on the water. And I'm going down a grass line, and I pick up a spinnerbait, and there's a little jog in the grass, Matt, and I throw that spinnerbait over there, and it's like, you started an outboard over there, and I hook a fish that takes off to the left and gets mired in the grass. And then I'm thinking, well, I'll go get him. And then he goes back to the right, comes out of the grass, gets over 20 feet in the canal, and is going down the canal. And it's just pulling. And I'm following with the trolling motor. I've got him hooked up, 20-pound line, spinnerbait. I've got him hooked up, and I had the thought, I've got you. Now, I've seen this fish when it makes the turn, and it's every bit 25% bigger than that bass right there. That Mark caught.
It looks like he's 11 right there.
And I'm like, I've got you. This took probably 30 seconds to when I think I've got you. Got a Gamakatsu trailer hook on the back of that spinnerbait, the whole 9 yards. So I know I'm good. And in the instant, Matt, that I had that thought, my line goes limp. And I'm like, there is no way that fish broke my line, because it was just a solid, steady pressure and pull going down the canal. The trolling motor's on. I'm following that fish. My line goes limp. And the spinnerbait actually broke. It broke the wire. And normally when you break a wire on spinnerbait, you get the blades. And I got the head of the lure back, and the skirt and the hook and the trailer hook. I got all of that back. And the point of the main hook was curled completely over. So I hit that big fish in the top of the head, and it curled the point, and I lose the fish when the spinnerbait breaks. That takes me back to my fish, which when I caught that fish I caught it on an Oldham spinnerbait, Terry Oldham, had a Gamakatsu hook in it. I curled the point of that hook. And when my partner reaches down to grab her with both hands, he lifts up, the bait comes out of the mouth, and he gets her in the boat. That point of that hook is demolished where I hit her in the bone in the top of the head. But the whole moral of the story, Matt, is can you name the angler, the co-angler's name, and what his name might have been that grabbed that big giant fish for me? And this is an absolute fact. I just think it's so ironic.
Do I know him, or is it a funny name?
Probably don't. But I'll go ahead and throw it out here. His name was Noble Handy, and he was certainly noble on that day. And Noble was like, oh my gosh, this is 2 weeks in a row, because he had fished a Pro-Am tournament the weekend or two before, and he landed a 12.25 or 12.50 for some guy in the Pro-Am tournament that he'd fished on Richland a couple of weeks prior. And then he lands a 13.9 that was a history maker for me. Noble Handy.
What's wild is that I remember this. We called him the fruit man, which was Scott Campbell. Remember, he had the wrap that had all the different fruits and vegetables on
Yes,
it?
yes.
His 13.2 looks like an 8-pounder.
Well,
that was weird out of Falcon. I guess those fish were just super thick, because yours looks like a 13.9, and Mark Tyler, like I said, Mark Tyler there looks like he's about 11, like it's his first day ever fishing, but that looks like a 14.9.
Right. Well, Scott's fish came from Falcon, where the growth rates are so fast. If you'll look at the head of that fish and the mouth of that fish, it's relatively small. That fish is basically shaped like a Kentucky spotted bass from Table Rock, small mouth, large body, and short. These fish that Mark and I caught were young fish, but yet had such a slower growth rate. And to grow big bass, you have to have a cold water time period so that the bass basically goes into hibernation so its body can rest. And at the California Delta, December, January, February, and part of early March, that water temperature is in the 40s. At Richland Chambers, that's far enough north that it's not in that subtropical zone that it gets waters in the 40s for a month or two. And that's why when you look at the rings on a fish's scale, you'll find those concentric rings of the tree on those scales like that on the fish too. And those tight rings are those slow growth periods and your cold water time periods. So to grow giants, like in Southern California, there's a month or two that it gets cold enough that they actually stop growing and their bodies rest. And that's what you have to have big bass.
Does it surprise you that there hasn't been a fish over 12 weighted in the Elite Series?
Well, it has, and it hasn't. Those we've been
since then. You did the Falcon a little bit, but I mean, like in the last 10 years, I could be wrong on this. I don't remember anything over 11. Do you?
There's David Gaston caught a giant at Okeechobee. He caught an 11 something. And that may be the biggest fish we've seen in quite some time. But we're not going to those venues where you have the possibility.
That's what I said. We've seen in the smallmouth where it definitely takes 100 pounds, and a 6-pounder is a good anchor for your bag. Whereas before, I mean, I think what would Falcon, when Paul Elias set the record, what would Falcon have been like? Take that exact week in that lake at the time and put today's technology and anglers on that. What would it was 132.8. What would the winning weight have been?
I'll just put another 25% on it. I mean, that's about what it's taken.
150.
At least 150. The interesting thing is when I started, 8 pounds a day, 3 out of 4 years, you are angler or you're a classic qualifier with 8 pounds a day, 3 out of 4 years, and you are angler of the year 1 out of 4 years. And that has gone up at a 20% clip about every 10 pounds. So now I'm having to catch 14, 15 pounds a day just to make the money now. So angler of the year now has gone up to 20, 21, 22 pounds. I don't even know. I've not done the calculations, but back in the day, that's how much our skills have improved and how quickly the sport.
I was over at Jeffrey's house the other night. I said, we found all this old footage, and it's him and Harold. I believe it was 2007, and they're wrapping up day one of Champlain.
Mhm.
Right. And Harold is just going off about how the field averaged a 14-pound limit on Champlain. And that's why they come up here, because they are just absolutely cracking them. 14 pounds is 50th place, Mark. Like, that's just mind blowing to him at the time. And I'm like, damn, 14. Now you either broke down or you're in 100th. Like, you're in 100th with 14 pounds now. Like, you start out with 18, 19, 20 on a place like that. Typically it's wild.
It's amazing. And St. Clair is one. The St. Lawrence River is one. You've got Champlain. Those northern fisheries have so many 3 and 4 and 5 pound fish in them. It's amazing. They don't have 7, 8s, and 9s very often. There's a unicorn or two up there. Yes. We had a St. Lawrence tournament that I came back with a 20-pound sack. This was probably 15. I came back with a 20-pound sack and had a 6'3" largemouth, and everybody was oohing and on. Well, that's 6'3" largemouth and 20 pounds doesn't even get you the time of day now. We do, in this career that I've had, I've watched venues go up in weight. I've seen great venues go down in weight. So I've been here long enough to see natural population oscillations that are really cool. Some lakes like a Toledo Bend have always been very consistent, Rayburn being another one. But now we're seeing different locations have these great populations of fish that show great numbers. What I really like in a tournament is going, say, to a lake where your big fish is a 5 or a 6 or a 7 pounder. Christy goes over there and catches almost a 10 pounder. He catches the one unicorn in the lake. But that really makes for a much more equal playing field. The other thing I would love for us to see and change back to, but television requirements and television timing factor into this. Let's have some more fall tournaments where it is tougher, The COVID year of 20, I did not get to fish that year because of a back injury. I thought was the most interesting year. That was the year that I came and did commentary with Jeffries on BTL for all those.
I remember that
because I was sitting on the bench. But, we watched Clark Winlet the last day of the season grind out 4 that weighed 8 pounds on Lake Fork, and it gave him enough cushion to win Angler of the Year. I want to see us put more of our skills back into it than. Was
that the year they went to Chickamauga? That was the year they went to all these wildly good fisheries at bad times, and absolutely, a 3-pounder on Chickamauga. That was where they were skipping wacky rigs around docks. They were hoping to get 2 or 3 frog bites, 10 to 12 of. Yeah, I remember that year. It was wild to see fisheries that you knew were good, but that, when you're there during a really crappy time, that was a badass year, because it was powerhouse fisheries that were rescheduled to the crappiest times you could ever be there.
But that's real fishing, Matt. Yeah, that's what our BTL watchers and listeners, that's what they have to contend with every year. It's not always Hollywood when I go to a damn tournament and I catch 100 pounds. It's not. That's not real fishing. Real fishing is a day in which you get 6 bites and you catch all 6. And that is 100% efficiency. That is the test of true angling. And I would love to see our tournament situations go back to some more of that, instead of going to these anabolic steroid lakes where there's so damn many fish, you can throw it over your shoulder and catch one. Now, those are fun tournaments too when we're blasting them, but I really, really like the grinders. Those are the ones that really show how you can figure out a very minuscule pattern and make it work.
Nick said Mark smashed the nail right through the wall with that comment. One more thing. I'm just curious. It's somewhat related to this. And now we could openly talk about it with the 28th day off limits. Drunkwood said, do you think an elite will ever go back to Kentucky Lake, and why does Matt suck so much there? We don't have to worry about the second half of that tournament, but we have a comment, but we have had you on a number of times where you champion the carp cause. You know, there are a bunch of, you know, coalitions. It seems, and having been there for the past, that is actually a situation where biologists worked with fishermen, worked with nature, to where it's not solved and it's not perfect, but it is under control. That's just an assumption. That's my opinion as an outsider from Oklahoma who goes there a couple times a year and is active on it. Is that a fair breakdown of the carp situation on Kentucky?
Those are the optics, and I was lucky enough to have my face implanted on that, because I was watching my area just dry up, Matt. Businesses going out of business, tackle shops, gas stations, boat dealerships, hotels, diners. It was tough around here, and I got involved with that, and we moved forward, and it was a great blend of governmental agencies, politics, fishermen, biologists. We all came together for a common goal, and we did a good thing. The one thing that we didn't count on, and this is based on conversations with my area fisheries biologist, Adam Martin, who's a great biologist and an avid fisherman himself, is we've been lucky enough to find out through TWRA in their electrofishing studies that they're not finding any young of the year Asian carp in our system. The only Asian carp that we're getting in our system is coming through immigration through our dams. So with the numbers of carp not spawning as regularly as they did during that perfect storm time period, and the fact that we have learned, that our biologists have learned, that the life expectancy of these fish is not as long as what we thought it was going to be in our waters, we're getting a twofold exponential decrease. They're not spawning, they're not living as long, so they're going out of the system much faster than we thought, has lessened the pressure of the carrying capacity of our lake, which carrying capacity is the ability of the lake to carry X amount of fish, regardless of what.
I remember when you came on before, you were literally there. What you did one show where you were like there, you talked about that as their biologist, and you said there are so many pounds of carp that there physically cannot be bass. And if it continues at this rate, the only thing in the lake will be Asian carp.
Absolutely. And that's where we were headed. And then we started turning that around about the time Mother Nature said, okay, Mr. Asian carp, this is about as far as we're going to let you go. And we started removing millions and millions of pounds of Asian carp, and we're still removing those fish from the lake. You don't see near as many of them in the lake as you once did. But the interesting thing that happened was you had all this room in the bass world, in the bass population, and smallmouth, for lack of a better term, are not great parents. They spawn, they watch their babies for a couple of days, and then they're gone. And the babies have to fend for themselves. But where those smallmouth were spawned and where those smallmouth grew up, they had great recruitment. They got recruited to bigger size. A largemouth is a much better parent than a smallmouth is and stays with those babies longer. But our numbers of largemouth were so puny and so low, it took a lot longer for those largemouth to catch up.
So they're still not caught up.
Well, we're getting there. And I'm going to step out on a limb, Matt, and say in the next 2 years, you're going to see a reversal. We're probably right now at a 60-40 smallmouth, largemouth. You're going to see Kentucky Lake return to that 60-40 largemouth situation that we have, because we have such a tremendous number of 13.5 to 15, 16-inch largemouth in the lake, and they're prolific spawners. And with those numbers come more numbers and more numbers, and the habitat just lends itself better than smallmouth. Right now, it's much easier to go catch a 5-pound smallmouth than it is a 5-pound largemouth.
Yeah, really, is it? I was unaware of that, Mark.
It's significantly easier.
Really? Significantly easier?
Yes, because we don't have the numbers of those older stock of largemouth. Yeah, you can catch there was a 7-pounder caught this weekend.
How easy is it to catch a 4-pound smallmouth on Kentucky Lake?
It's pretty darn easy. I'm
Really?
not saying that it's a gimme on a putt, but I'm saying you're around more 4 to 5 pound smallmouth there than you are 4 to 5 pound largemouth.
I like the screen share here. I ask you that because of the March 6th through 8th, 2005 St. Croix Bassmaster Open on Kentucky Lake. Let's just go to the results here.
It was amazing.
It was so amazing. Let's just keep scrolling.
Yeah, I'm 27th there with 32 pounds, which was comprised of a first day of 15 pounds of largemouth. I abandoned the largemouth and went fishing for smallmouth and had almost 17 pounds the next day.
Oh, yeah, just crazy. But just keep talking because I'm still scrolling because we haven't got to my name yet.
Well, okay. So we do have a dynamic fishery now. Matt, if you jumped in the boat with me right now, we could any day on Kentucky Lake, you can expect to catch between 10 and 12 or 14 keeper bass, with 1 to 2 to maybe 3 of those being in that 4 to 5 pound class range. That's not bad bass fishing. Is it Kentucky Lake of old? Not yet. I had a 26-pound day of largemouth the other day this summer on an old hole where they get, and my best buddy and I and his son, we cracked them on a 10XD. It was old, old fun and old school, and it can happen like that. But right now, we just have so many more smallmouth in the lake than we do largemouth, but it's coming back.
I was being sarcastic. I 100% know that I was the problem there. That was I
remember an old Toyota or something that you fished that you caught like a 2-pounder the first day and then came back the next day when
let's talk about this. You mentioned the info thing that you like the 28-day no info. So that was a Toyota. So that would have been 2019. And I called you up and I said, hey, Mark, I've never been to fish Kentucky Lake before. It's a certain time of the year. This is just my opinion. This is how I think information should work. You said, I would recommend this area, and this area. You gave me no waypoints. You gave me just very generals. I get into the areas. Each area is multiple miles in size, and I work around in them, and I find one, and I actually in that tournament got on a wicked. That was right when the 2-tap had just come out, and I spent a lot of money after that day of practice having a lot of 2-tap ship because I couldn't get a bite on that lake at anywhere, and they would choke the tungsten 2-tap. And so I go back there in the tournament. I catch one fish on the first day on the 2-pounder, and then for some reason I switched it up to a 3/4 ounce spinnerbait, and I got 4 bites on it in an hour on the second day. You want to talk about a grinder tournament, and I moved from 90th to 23rd with 4 bass on Kentucky Lake for a grand total of 13 pounds. But you put me in a 5-mile stretch. I found one little 50-yard stretch of just glorious like straight out of Bassmaster magazine, a pre-spawn bank that literally had shallow water behind it, deep water out. I mean, it was perfect. And I caught all 4 of those fish on a spinnerbait, like on the same cast in a 10-yard stretch.
Well, this information thing, it's going to make it easier to police as far as what's going on. It puts it on an even table. I still wish we had to fish on our own merits. I really, really do. But we've always had buddies that say, hey, if I came to Oklahoma and went to one of your lakes, you'd say, Mark, get over there in that area. That's the best area of the lake. Go fishing. Buddies, fishing people are fishing people. That's all there is to it. But now it's going to be a little easier to police, and hopefully we won't have problems out of this. But I wish we could just fish on our own merits and just go from there.
Yeah, I need to do a whole show on that. I know that is definitely hot button issue, and an hour and 15 minutes into this, probably not something we need to dive headfirst into. I'd love to get you back on for your opinion on that. I think I'm going to find a bunch of different options about it. I think everyone could agree You want a fair and level playing field.
Yes.
And if you can figure out a way to make all 100 anglers on the Elite Series not know what the schedule is beforehand, not have a loophole of a buddy who's on a Chamber of Commerce who signs a deal for 2026 and says, hey, you know, they're going here, not having a lodge that gets word of this or a sponsor or a partner, like that's the stuff that you don't hear about that goes on behind the scenes on that, where if you have it at the 28 days, it is fair and level, because you know that everybody has the same opportunity to legally get everything. And the more you try, I was saying this to someone, I said, you really want a fair and level tournament, you have to put every viable fishery on a piece of paper in a bag. You have to get everybody up on the airplane like Ray Scott did just for the Classic, but no one knows. No one in the organization, nothing. You've got a bag with every viable fishery in it, everybody up with their cell phone and telecommunication devices confiscated. And then that is a randomly drawn out of the bag. And that is the only way you can do it. But even then, you could go to a fishery where someone like you or someone like any of the guys have connections. They haven't established. So like, yeah, you may not want information now, but guess what? I've talked with this ad nauseum about guys to be like, well, you share information with the guys that you're already on tour with, and you fish for 20 years where you had anywhere from a 2-week to a 28-day off limits. And on certain fisheries, you know, rocks don't typically move on some fisheries. Certain areas where fish live don't move on other fisheries. So it's still not a fair and level playing field, because then you have guys who don't have information, but you have guys who have gotten information on that fishery for 30 years and they're rooming with guys who have that information. Their information highway is very little affected. And if I'm one of those guys, I'm going, yeah, make it a whole year, because I don't want these guys getting on it. The only thing that I think that you run into the moral obligation is the purchasing or bartering, which Bass has done a good job of counteracting at it like this way. But I think for everybody, the most fair and equal is don't pay, don't barter, earn your right to develop relationships with people based on your merit, how you treat people, the hard work that you put in, not to barter, but to call up your buddy and say, what part of the lake would you recommend, to be able to go to a fishing show like you did, where you said that was the majority of a lot of your worth early on in career was talking to people. Sure. To be able to go and talk about freaking Grand Lake up until January, instead of going, whoa, you said a lake that started with G, I'm out of here, I don't want to get DQ'd. It's better for the organization. You're representing them. It's better for you. It's better for your sponsors. It's better for developing relationships with the fans and everything down the road. And the fact of the matter is, when it comes to no information, it does not matter what the format is. The gray area guys will find ways to play in the gray area, whether you make it 1 day before, 5 days before, 2 weeks, 365 days before, but at least this is all out in the open. It's stable. It's the way it was done for the past 20 years. This is the 20th year of the Elite Series. It's the way it was done for the past 17 years on the Elite Series. And it is what it is.
Well, you know, you can go back to one of the best movie quotes in the world. And, you know, Ferris Bueller at the end of the movie says, life moves fast. And our sport is moving faster now because of technology. Phones, you know, GPS, whatever, forward facing, it's faster. And yes, we can't go back to those days where that level playing field was an airplane, and it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, that's what guys used to do to get an edge. They'd hire an airplane and fly it over the lake.
Exactly. And so I hate to see it, but it is the way to put it in a box and make it square. In that conversation with Lisa, when she called me and said I was in, and she wanted me to make sure I knew the new rule change, and being a board member on the ABP, I already knew that. And she says, no bartering of anything. So I said, well, here's a hypothetical, Lisa. I go to Oklahoma and I fish with Matt on Grand Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Can I make him a sandwich to put in the boat with him or have water? And she said, if you do that, that will be considered bartering. Now, that's what fishing buddies do for each other. I'm giving
Yeah.
you something here for information here. I get it. So it's going to be very tight and you have to be very careful about what you do. I would have never thought that if I gave you a sandwich out of the bottom of my boat that I made for you on that fishing day, which is what I do for everybody that I fish with, done it for years. I'm bartering over a ham and cheese sandwich.
But it sounds like, based on the press release, that Bassmaster has heard the angler's desire to isolate intent.
Yes.
That seems to be the biggest thing. Like, if you did not intend to, but you broke a rule, maybe still a penalty. It's like, hey, I didn't mean to trip that guy on a breakaway. You still trip the guy on a breakaway. You're getting the penalty. But the intent is, I don't think there's a single professional angler or tournament angler out there that would not be in favor of, hey, the end all be all here is the intent of it.
I agree.
If you're if you're doing something for someone with the intent of gaining information in return, then yes, that is 100% bartering. If you're making a guy for a sandwich because you make a sandwich for everybody at lunch, it never even crosses your mind. And I'm not giving, we're going to spend a day on the water regardless of whether there's a sandwich in the boat or not.
Correct.
You're not breaking a rule.
Intent to gain a competitive advantage
clears
up most every rule and situation.
It's the same way to where you're going, well, what's going to keep someone's dad's uncle's brother from giving a guy a frickin' bicycle for his chip that is then passed down to where the dad just gives it to the angler and it's not bartering? Yes, it is, because the intent 3-4 people down the road was to barter for information to get back to that angler to gain a competitive advantage that he would not have otherwise been able to get.
So that simplifies the policing of all of it there. It's a slippery slope, and I'm sure we're going to have problems with it. But hopefully that simplification makes Lisa and Chris Bose's job easier, Hank Weldon as well. Because 99.9% of us that compete, we want
to follow the rules.
Fairest way. The rules are there to keep the honest people honest. And that's what we have to have. And if we can get it to where it's 100%, God, that would be great.
Dude, you've done this 31 years. Okay, listen, social media, click chasing, clout chasing, views, points of percentages on YouTube and all that stuff has changed a lot of stuff. You've done this long enough to know, Mark, this has always been an issue in our game, regardless of what it is, going back from day one. I've said this before. I said the reason why people showed up to Ray's tournament was because Ray said, we're not weighing in frozen bass. We're doing it in a one. Right. We've got a tournament director. That is why the people showed up, was because they were like, oh, this appears to be on the up and up, and I'm not getting beat by a dude that he caught on a shiner, that he caught on a frozen bass or something like that's been the genesis. But also since then, there have always been situations and anglers, some of which you've never heard of, never will, never have, some of which you have, but from the 60s through today, it's just, I feel like it's way more pop culture-y chic to put it out there and talk about it than, there was no way in the 70s, 80s, 90s. A lot of that was self-police too, Mark. I mean, how many times were there guys that were waiting at the boat ramp for someone? There's no camera around. There's nothing. It's treated like the locker room. They handle it. And that guy knows, hey, I'm going to get my ass kicked in the parking lot if I keep up my antics.
Absolutely. And, bad news or controversial news has always spread faster than good stuff. Have I been out of bounds in some tournaments? You betcha. And I've called foul on myself multiple times when I did something stupid. I'm a bonehead, Matt. I mean, I had my life jacket off in a place on the Elite 50 one time in Paducah, Kentucky, my home water, that cost me the win. The only person that saw me win was my dog Barkley after they pulled the camera and Tripp says, I'm going to have to disqualify you. And I knew I was out of bounds, but I called it on myself. There was another time when I called it on myself. We make mistakes. People make mistakes. We're not perfect. Running a no wake zone that you didn't see, a buoy that was out of place, those things happen. Are you out of bounds at that time? Yes, by the law you are. Did I do it to get a competitive advantage? Hell no, I didn't. But I had to take the consequences that ramified me being thrown out of the tournament or getting a win or making a classic. It cost me making a classic one time. Those type things are very acceptable from the anglers once they realize Mark pulled a bonehead and went up there below Barkley Dam and was in the zone. We deemed
life jackets.
You had to have your life jackets because of the state law. And there were multiple anglers up there all week that didn't have their life jackets on. All week. They didn't call foul. Maybe they didn't know. Maybe they didn't realize. But when I got up there and I realized it's on film.
Yeah.
It's on camera. And you can watch my whole body just see the air fall out of me an hour and a half in. So, yeah, you do make mistakes. And that gives the sport credibility when the angler goes, man, I tournament direct Tripp Weldon, I made a mistake. I made a mistake. Here it is. I'm owning up to it. And I'll take my punishment. That helps the sport. And
Bassmaster seems to, I wouldn't say reward, but they seem to work with anglers who self-report.
Yes.
Not like, hey, not self-report as in like, hey, I intentionally cheated and now I feel bad about it. But self-report as in, hey, I believe that I inadvertently had a rules violation. I don't know what to do with it. Here are the facts. What do you want me to do?
Yes, absolutely. And that's good. That's good. That I did not knowingly gain a competitive advantage. That was not my intent. I was just a fool and ran through the no wake zone. I was just a fool and got in a hurry and didn't keep my life jacket on. So those things happen. Getting to a place and pulling the boat over into other places that are private, whatever the rule infraction may be. Well, that's a different intent and can be handled differently. So I don't know. I don't wish that I had Chris and Lisa's job. Babysitting 105 elite guys, babysitting and Hank babysitting, 200 plus opens anglers at one time. Everybody's trying to figure out how to play under the rules and get the best advantage. I can't imagine some of the stories they've heard. I just can't. Some of it's got to be comical.
Yeah. My goal is to get one of those guys after they retired, after their whatever their no talk clause is, to start a podcast with a former tournament director, no holds barred open season, just change the name of the guys. I think that would be an absolute banger of a show.
Yeah, you'll have to have a big disclaimer. The names have been changed to protect the uninnocent, whatever it is. But that'd be pretty cool. I'd watch.
We're going to wrap things up here. I feel like we literally could have done an entire show on any of the topics that we covered, Mark.
No,
we could have done a show on the big fish. We could have done a show on the rules. We did a show on you back on the Elite Series in 2026. So congratulations on that. Well-deserved. You're the elder who's are you or Ike older?
Oh, I'm older than Ike. Yeah, I'm 61 now.
Oh, and I didn't realize that.
I think Kennedy is probably the closest to me in age. Ike is right in there. There's not many of us that are over 50. Russ Lane says he's one of the old guys. Hell, he's only 50. He's just a pup.
He's 52. Yeah.
So, yeah, I took offense to the old guy that the old guy label that he got. He's still got 10 more years, because those 10 years between 50 and 60.
That's where it hits you.
It kicks you right in the butt. So he thinks it's tough now. Wait till he gets to be 60.
God, then I can't imagine the years between 60 and 70, and then you're still going, and then you go another 7 years after that.
Well, the only other angler that I remember fishing into his 80s was Shorty Evans.
Guy Eaker did
won a Kentucky Lake tournament in his mid 70s. back around 78. He would have been really close to 70 at that time, maybe in his late 60s. But Shorty was, I mean, he got off the water and he had a toddy waiting for him, had him a cocktail, and he lived that old cigarette in his hand, whatever. He was a tough old bird. But, you know, seeing what Rick has done and that he continues to push himself mentally and physically, I am just so impressed as an athlete that he can maintain that level of performance with his mind and his body. I really appreciate that.
And you can tell that, I mean, now more so than ever, I feel like you can tell that he enjoys it and he soaks it in.
And that's the gray hair coming in there. That's the appreciation for all the hard work, the appreciation of the sport moving in front of your eyes, the appreciation that it has become a younger man's sport with all the advance of high school and college and these young kids coming in here. The influences that you've had, the great days on the water that you had, that perfect cast that you made, knowing that a great big one was going to clobber it when you make it. It's the influence of all of that. And it's really good. Rick has always been very quiet about things, but he has got the best sense of humor once you get to know him, and it's dry and it's funny, and he will zap you so quickly.
Yeah.
I think I've only gotten him once, Matt, in my entire life. And I told him one day, I said, you know, you are my absolute hero. And he goes, now, Mark, you've done great things in fishing and set records and won tournaments and been to classics. And I said, this doesn't have crap to do with fishing, Rick. And I saw those blue eyes of his flash, and I knew I had him. I had him right here. I said, you married a beautiful woman named Melissa, and I had to too. Oh. And when I said that, he turned 10 shades of red, and he just shook his head. He goes, you got me, dude. And when I told Melissa Clun, I told her that at a classic a year or two ago, she laughed so hard she could hardly breathe. She said, Mark, that's one of the greatest things ever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
When I told him that, I wiped him out. And that's my greatest accomplishment in fishing, is to one-up Rick on that one. That's one of my favorite things I've ever done. I promise you.
I say, yeah. I mean, one of the cool things about our sport, as we really are wrapping things up here, is there's so many of the OG legends that are still walking. We don't in any of the stick and ball sports, you don't get that privilege. And to be quite honest, we're not that many years off from not having that privilege anymore in bass fishing. So it's really cool. Even to see the social media, a lot of people appreciating the OGs, the forefathers who walk, rolling. I literally at this year's Bass Fishing Hall of Fame walked out and harassed the man to get his signature color spook autographed on the top, and just said, thanks, Roland. And he had no idea who I was and why he was siding the bait, but he did it. But I think the crazy thing is like, I'm late 30s, early 40s in a Bassmaster Open thinking about getting off the water, and you come around a point because, you're tired. You've been up there since 4, it's 6 o'clock in the evening, and you're like, son of a bitch, that's Rick Clun out here still throwing a freaking spinnerbait on the bank. And you know for a fact that he was out there before you were. Like, I drove past at that Kentucky Lake freaking tournament, and we all looked out and went, we ain't going out today. And Rick's freaking truck is in the parking lot.
He's the only one there. I put it on the trailer that day of practice that it blew so hard, and I went home. I went home and spent the night in Paducah with my wife and had dinner and had a nice evening that night. I went home. It's tough old birds. It's a whole different, Guy Aker is still fishing. Guy is up there bumping 80 pretty hard. Jimmy Houston fishes hard. Hank Parker, there were some rumblings about a senior tour coming, and boy, I wish that would hurry up and come. I think that would be fantastic for our sport. I qualify now that I'm 60 years old.
Yeah.
But I would be one of the young guys again. And that's what I'm trying to do, is recapture my youth, Matt.
I think you would get the most eyeballs on that if you only put them on Great Lakes Fisheries during the spring and fall, and just bungee cord to the butt seat and send them out
Oh, come on
to
now.
surf and
be
drag a
kind.
tube around,
But I think
just like out
it
of
has enough-
Buffalo, out of St. Clair.
I think it would have enough eyeballs.
Oh
that
yeah, it would.
It would really help our sport right now.
Mhm.
I think it's time. Golf has that. My next door neighbor growing up was on the PGA Tour. His name was Russ Cochran, one of the only left-handers out there. And Russ was a steady Eddie, good golfer. Only won one PGA tournament in 91. Goes to the senior tour, wins the British Open, wins 2 or 3 in a row, made $5 million in 1 year. I mean, and I think our sport is old enough and that we deserve to have that for a lot of great
Not an
ideas.
expo where you just go out and mess around, but a legit senior tour where it's a
Yes.
2-day tournament where
Yes.
you fish from 8 to 2, have the,
Take an
that's a
hour for
six-
lunch.
yeah, well, that's a 6-hour day, what I'm saying, to where you have the points and payouts and just see how it's received. I think there is, I agree. Jeffries has been on this train for 20 years. He's been a huge proponent of it. It has come back up. I mean, he did like a PowerPoint slideshow presentation of it. And now when you get up into it, I mean, you would have, I think if you do over 50, because you'd have Kevin and Skeet, and I think it's got a lot of merit.
You think about 60. You've got Kevin, Davey Height, Skeet's not quite there. Clark Wendlet, myself. The list goes on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
And still all of us are capable anglers, but the ones that we really appreciate are the Jimmies and the Hanks and Bill Dance and all of those. Hey, I've got a guy here that owns a gun shop in Murray, Kentucky, that in the early 70s was one of the premiers. He won the BCA championship in 1977, made 5 classics, won all of those tournaments back then. And that's Hugh Massey, Hugh Gray Massey. I see Hugh, he's 80 years old and he looks better than you do, Matt. He's 80 years old and still loves to fish.
I love it. That's you're still Elite Series caliber, because you're like, no, not 50, 60. You want to be the young guy who gets beat up. You get the 50s and bring a Kevin and Ski, all those guys in. Kev's going, they're saying you want to beat down on some geriatrics, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely.
How about we make that 60?
Yeah, I'm gonna make Centrum Silver my primary sponsor this year, and I'm going to go with it.
Oh, the senior tour would basically be like the heyday of the FLW tour editions.
Yeah, Insure would be one of the boats, things like that. But
you going to catch him today? Depends.
with the preservation of the early time that we've done with the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, with the preservation that Lynn Dollar has done with the digital part of that, the video, and it's just time, guys. Let's bring that to, Metamucil would be another good one there. I saw on a comment, just out of the respect of what those guys went through to help build this sport, to what they shared with everybody in Bassmaster magazine, the tactics that they developed on their own, that we all still follow today. Just out of respect, it's time.
Mark Menendez, you can catch him on the 2026 Bassmaster Elite Series, also on all the social medias. You still got the show going strong. I like it. A lot of old school techniques mixed with new school. And you'll see, you have 8 crankbaits on the front deck. You're still catching them on the jerk bait, all sorts of good stuff. So always appreciate it. Very educational and a good time. So have fun getting ready for the Elite Series in 2026, and thank you for the hour and 40 minutes of your time.
Well, thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate it. Want all the BTL watchers to watch on January the 2nd. There will be an unveiling of a new partnership that I'm extremely, extremely proud of and excited about, and we will unveil that January the 2nd. So follow me at Mark Menendez Bass on Instagram and Mark Menendez at Twitter, and you will get to see what's going to happen in 2026 with me.
Very cool. Congratulations. See you, Mark.
See you guys. Bye.
All right, the one and only Mark Menendez. We're going to wrap things up. It's a recorded show tomorrow. I'm headed to Bacharach in Mexico, but we're doing it with Kyle Welcher. He's been doing some crazy stuff on YouTube. I said, hey, I want to chat with you about it. He goes, those silly videos? I said, those aren't silly videos. There's a deeper meaning behind it. Also, I know that there's a little bit of maybe some controversy about the latest and final college football playoff bracket. Maybe some people that are really happy in Indiana, some people that aren't really happy, but it reminded me of another controversial bracket that went down for $500,000 in professional bass fishing. I don't know if Welcher knows about this or remembers about this, but we're going to talk to him about that. Also, tomorrow night, 7:30, CTL Crappie Talk Live, Zeke Anderson in studio. We have the next rendition of teaching bass anglers how to catch giant crappie. So a lot of stuff going on, and then live from the lodge in Mexico. The rest of the week, this has been another edition of BTL Bass Talk Live. We'll talk to everyone tomorrow. See ya.